everyone, and I am here today, Kate from Sleep Time Consulting. I am here today to talk to you about sleep environment. So, it is the next part of my series about educating you about all the things that you need to know and understand to help your little one sleep better. And some of those things are complicated and tricky and things you need to test, and some of them are easy wins. And sleep environment comes into that easy win camp. So it's kind of all about understanding optimal sleep environment for you and your little one so that you can help them sleep in the best way possible. And that's really vital to kind of get right. And I think it's one of the key fundamentals that I talk about, and it's one of the ones that I analyse when I work with clients one to one. It's always we talk about what the sleep situation is, what the environment is, and like optimize it so that it helps your little one sleep as well as possible. So, firstly, a thing I'm going to talk about is safe sleep, and it's really, really important to me. I have done some training with the Lullaby Trust, and we talked about all the different kind of aspects of safe sleep. And please do go over to them and have a read and check out any questions you've got. They're a super helpful resource. But the key things I want to kind of share with you are making sure that firstly you put your child down with their back to sleep. This is before they can kind of move about and roll around on their own. After that, there's a different advice on that, but back to sleep. And making sure that they're in a clear space, safe space with a waterproof breathable mattress, and the temperature of the room is not too hot. It's also making sure that you're sleeping safely with them. So this is not about sort of saying no to co-sleeping. It's about co-sleeping safely, and they have great advice on that as well. But it's also about recognising that you don't want to fall asleep on the sofa with your baby. You want to make sure that they are in a good position to be able to sleep. So Lullaby Trust is your go-to for kind of those younger babies. But I'm here today to talk about all ages of kids. So we don't need to just talk about babies because this applies to everyone. And there are a few things that I kind of wanted to run through to make sure that you understand. So the first thing is about what they're sleeping in, because your child needs to have the right amount of space and the right environment to sleep in. So when we kind of got newborns, you have things like next to me's, Moses baskets, cribs, whatever you want to call them, and they're generally in the room with you until 6 months, and then when you choose to move them out when it's right for you, then you can do so. But just be conscious of the size of your child as they get to that kind of upper end of the scale, because sometimes these cribs and next to me's, etc., they can be a little bit restrictive. So you want to make sure that your child has enough space to feel that they can be free. Now, were positioners, and I think there still are on the market. They're not recommended for sleep necessarily. There is a whole benefit to having a kind of a sort of a cozy feel when you've got a newborn. That's why we swaddle. But after that stage, then actually you want to think about the long term and how you want your child to sleep long term, and introducing that to them early on can be beneficial because obviously you're there to support them through it. So having the right adequate space, whether that's the next to me, the cot with the sides up, the cot with the sides down as a transitional bed, or the bed itself as they get to that kind of older age, it's all about giving them the right opportunity to sleep in that space. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the kind of the distractions of the environment they're sleeping in. So if your child's in their own room, or even if they're in with you, just make sure that it's a simple sleep space. So this means that you want to kind of have limited distractions, and that might be avoiding things like mobiles hanging over their sleep space, flashing lights, the sort of star lights on their kind of ceiling, anything that might distract them from sleeping, or kind of perhaps be a sort of like hangover in the night that they might want to have on and on and on round and through the night, because they will sort of potentially get attached to that, and you want to kind of encourage them to enjoy it and maybe have it as part of your bedtime routine, but then allow them to sleep in a very undistracted space. And that goes for like kind of lots of teddies and toys around in the room. So maybe just get one of those kind of boxes, you just chuck everything in there in the end of the day, and make sure that the sleep space is as it is, a sleep space. So make sure that they've got a nice kind of calm space to be kind of sleeping in. Now, melatonin if you've not heard of it, is the hormone that helps us feel sleepy. And one of the next things I want to talk about is darkness. So darkness is very much your friend when it comes to sleep. You want to make sure that your child is set up in a very dark environment, as dark as you can get it, for naps and for nighttime sleep of any age this is, so that you can help them to settle down to sleep for better. So the melatonin helps us feel sleepy and helps us stay asleep, but it will help us to avoid things like resistance in going down at bedtime if they're not tired enough, because the light levels are too high and the melatonin isn't being produced, or potentially any kind of light that creeps into the room in the morning can cause them to wake, because any sort of little gap. So things like blackout blinds, travel blackout blinds are brilliant just to kind of temporarily, not temporarily, but to cut that light level out and to make sure that you've got a nice dark environment. In the daytime it's a bit harder when you're talking about naps, but do the best that you can to get them to settle down into that sleep. So darkness is very much your friend. Now the only thing I would slightly add to that is that when they get past the age of around about 2, they can start to sort of talk about being scared of the dark. And what that means is that you want to kind of recognise that and maybe work with it. So not sort of ignoring the fact they have got a fear, but put in maybe like a night light, only if they talk about it. So you don't need to do it at that age unless it's necessary. But make sure it's kind of like a red or an amber light, because that helps us with the melatonin production. Anything that's kind of bright blue or white light, that can affect the way that we kind of stay sleepy. So orange or red night lights, and avoid these kind of changing colour ones as well. They can be not so helpful for sleep. So night lights are alright past the age of 2 if they're for any. Now, the temperature of the room can be important. It does go back to kind of some of the recommendations from Safe Sleep, but also we do sleep better at a lower temperature, which is kind of a curious one. But the optimum room temperature is somewhere between 16 to 21 degrees, so often a bit cooler than you think. So I'd encourage you to consider that. You don't need kind of fancy thermometers in the bedroom. Anything that just shows you the temperature will be the best thing for you to be using. And just change things accordingly. I always remember when my son started waking up around sort of autumn time. I'm like, why is he waking up? And he was cold because I'd forgotten to change his duvet, and I felt very guilty. We changed it and he started sleeping better. So be aware of the seasonal change. Dress for less in the summer, obviously, and dress with more kind of either a higher sleeping bag tog or a warmer duvet to help them have the right temperature across the night. So the coldest part of the night is sort of about 3-4 o'clock, which is often when we can kind of see kids waking up. So make sure they've got the right kind of temperature for them to help them to stay asleep. Now the last thing I want to talk about is white noise. So white noise is your friend when it comes to sleep. We often find that white noise can help a child to settle better, but it also can help them to stay asleep for longer, because it does this job of absorbing background noise. It can help them sort of link between the sleep cycles, because it creates something that fills the gap when they kind of wake. And as long as it's at the kind of the right level, so we talk about kind of conversational level, 50 to 60 decibels if you want to measure it and get technical, then it will help to do that. And you can put it into a child's environment, make sure it's on consistently. That's one of the key things, it's consistent, and white noise can be really, really helpful. And not that it goes on and off. So using something like a white noise machine or an untuned radio or an old device can be really, really good for your little one's sleep. And don't worry too much about them getting too addicted to it. It's really very much a thing that's a kind of a help, and when you've got good sleep, just turn it down and turn it off. But those are the key things I wanted to share with you today. So we talked about safer sleep and referring to the Lullaby Trust. We talked about what your little one should be sleeping in, relevant to their age. Avoiding distractions at night time, that can be a really important thing to do to help them to stay asleep for a good time. The darkness and the importance of the light levels around sleep, the temperature of the room, and lastly, the white noise. So I hope that was a good kind of talk through all the tips I have for sleep environment, and I will be back the next time to talk about the next step on my journey to better sleep for you. Any questions, please do get in touch, and I look forward to chatting to you soon. Take care, bye bye.